Hey, this is Jim Howard with Trinity Security Allies. I wanted to come out and talk to you tonight about getting ready for the holidays. Now, with Thanksgiving past us, we turn our attention to the Christmas holidays, but we need to be thinking about all the other extra activities that are happening on our church property during this time frame. Anything from pancakes with Santa, cookies with Santa, lighting up Trinity, where we turn on Christmas lights on all the trees and on the property to having movies on a big screen outside for the families to come and watch these movies. The thing that we look at is that anytime there's a lot of people on your campuses, safety should be something that is considered. Safety should be something that the leadership talks to the safety team lead to find out whether or not they're needed or whether like they hire local law enforcement. In the lighting up Trinity, they know that they're probably going to have close to 2,000 people on property. The reason why is because they're having a farmer's market at this basically the same time. So it's going to draw a large crowd. So a lot of times they will contact local law enforcement and have them on campus because of the size of it. If your church is doing something that you think that you might have 20,000 people on the property, you really should contact local law enforcement just to have them aware of what is going on in your area, just in case they receive a call from there. They know that there's a large crowd. Now, one of the things that we kind of are looking at and we saw was that ATF came out and urged churches to take enhanced security measures amid recent attacks. Now, the thing that bothers me about this and the thing that concerns me about this, look, this was the title. This was the title of the article. ATF urges churches to take enhanced security measures. Well, now, when I'm reading this, I'm thinking that this is across the country or that we have to be ready because all of a sudden ATF has gotten something through the grapevine, I mean, through their network that is saying that there's issues with churches across the country. I mean, it isn't. If you read exactly what's going on, it talks about that there was a series of arsons against the church, but these churches were up in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Now, that doesn't mean they can't bleed over into other states, but when it says urges churches to take, that makes me think that, like I said, to me, this is kind of clickbait. I need to be clicking on this because there's probably something out there that may be causing churches to be need to be aware of, as in groups have made threats against all churches. Any Christian church out there that's celebrating Christmas, there's a threat against them. So make sure that when you see things like this, that you read the whole article, because it goes on to say in this article, in a November the 8th statement, the Bureau said there is no specific threats against churches, but that authorities recommended vigilant and proactive steps to prevent potential incidents. Okay, apparently they haven't been at our churches recently because we as safety teams take every event that happens and we always have enhanced security measures. I mean, we're consistently paying attention to those that come on our church and are on the property while we're having events there. Now, let me just say this one thing. When it talks about this, especially the arsons that are happening at these churches, this is where cameras and that type of equipment are very important, unless you're going to have somebody that stays at the church overnight to watch. Now, that if you consider enhanced security measures, but when reading this article, it was talking about putting up cameras and different systems like that so that they could kind of watch the property while nobody was there. It wasn't really like I said, I'm going to say this again, an actual threat that was made to churches across the country. So let's make sure that we're reading this, all of it, instead of one of these that, it just kind of like makes you think, oh my gosh, there's something happening to all of our churches. Now, the thing that I really find interesting and I really wanted to point out is that Jillian Peterson and James Dinsley, I have met James Dinsley. They wrote a book, an article, I mean, a small book called The Violence Project, and it was interesting to read. It pointed a lot of fingers at why we have the problems that we have in the country as far as weapons and things like that. And like I said, I found it very interesting, but as far as whether or not it was all encompassing or helped us, I don't know. Like I said, interesting article, done well. But the Violence Prevention Project, which is the research center that they've started, it came up with an interesting thing. It said murder in the time of crisis. And it talks about in 2020, the United States experienced an unprecedented 30% increase in homicides, the largest surge in over a century. This spike has been widely attributed to COVID-19 pandemic, social isolation, economic instability, and the civil unrest. Okay. Now this is interesting because we talked about when we came back into the churches what we might see with the COVID virus, the COVID-19. We talked about three types of people that would be coming into your church. We talked about those that thought the virus was a conspiracy just to see how far the government could shut us down. We had others that believed that if you weren't double vaxxed and triple masked, that you were killing the elderly. And then we had people that were hurting because they had lost something. They had lost their business. They had lost a loved one. Different things like that that would cause them to question why these things have happened. And when they come to the church, because that is where they come to seek answers, we need to make sure that we're there to help them with the issues that they have and not talk about the politics behind it. So the study found now Dinsley and Peterson went in and interviewed 18 individuals convicted of homicide in Minnesota during this time frame. The study found that for many of the interviewees, their lives were already marked by instability, early exposure to violence, and entrenched criminal behavior before 2020. But the pandemic and subsequent civil unrest only intensified these challenges, creating an environment where mental health struggles, economic hardship, and the breakdown of the routine escalated personal crisis. Okay, for some, losing jobs, facing homelessness, or dealing with the unaddressed mental health condition triggered extreme reaction. What have we been saying all along? The problem that we're running into in our churches right now have a lot to do with mental health issues. And it says one interviewee, for example, lost his job during the pandemic and unable to cope with the instability, stopped taking his medication, which ultimately led to the tragic death of his child. Once again, mental health. And so we've talked about mental health over and over and over again. I mean, I've done this slide in several of our presentations where we talk about some of the stuff that we're facing in the country and in the world as far as mental health goes. And one of the biggest things that we have said is that depression impacting an estimated 300 million people is the most common mental disorder. Now, let me just say something to you. 74 million people voted for Kamala Harris. And I'm not getting into the politics, but if you haven't been watching the videos, they are still depressed over this. There is still a lot of depression over this that has happened. There is going to be a political change here. Now, will we see it during the Christmas time? I don't know. I mean, if you watch the news or been paying attention, they were talking about not getting together with your family if they voted a different way than you voted. Now, that's just isolation. That's one of the things that depression is really bad about, because when you isolate yourself instead of coming out and talking to people or wanting to have conversations with people, it just builds the mental health issue even higher. So I want us to be aware of this, that I think that we may see some, I don't know, we're going to be paying attention, but we may start to see depression impacting churches during this Christmas time. A lot of people say that, this sometimes is depressing because people that they've lost over the year are not going to be there with them. If there's a divorce, the kids are going to be at separate locations. I mean, there's a lot of things going on right now. And plus, 74 million people who voted for the Harris campaign are not happy right now. And we need to understand it and we need to face it as a Christian and from a Christian point of view. Now, we do not allow, of course, people to disrupt our church or to cause damage or destruction to our church. I mean, we understand that. That's why we're here. But the first part is we need to make sure that we are ambassadors and maybe sit down at the table and have a conversation, if they will have a conversation. If not, we'll talk about what we're going to do next. Now, Christmas. All right, let's talk about this. Planning for Christmas. All the events that you know of that are happening at your church, you need to know the dates and the times of these services. Like I said, light up Trinity, pancakes with Santa, watching a movie, on the campus. Make sure that you're aware of all these dates and what is happening and what the church requires from you. meet with the staff and the leaders of the church so you can get an idea of what they're looking for you to do and what you should be doing to help out. Sometimes they may look at you and say, "Hey, you know what? We really don't need you. We don't think you need to be there." But if you feel led to be there, be there. Talk to your safety volunteers. Find out how much time they can do. Listen, we don't want to, stress them out, or we don't want to, wear them out, but talk to your safety team of volunteers. Also talk to your church, because if your church happens to have 4 services on campus, make sure that you got some sort of refreshments, food, and things like that for your safety team volunteers or any of your volunteers. Any of the volunteers that may be there more than 2 services should be fed or given something to eat, because you just need to take care of them. You really do. And plus, it also shows the love of Christ. So make sure that you're taking care of your volunteers. But safety team leaders, make sure you're talking to your safety team volunteers. Get scheduling done right now so that you know what's happening. Network with other churches. The reason why we really need to be doing this is because we have seen in the past where people have showed up at church asking for money during the Christmas time to be turned away, only to have somebody show up later on wanting to fight with somebody because they didn't take care of their mother, their aunt, their grandmother. So make sure you network with other churches, because if they're having issues at other churches, they're going to come to your church. So also always include local law enforcement. I know of some churches that are going to hire law enforcement to handle all their safety issues. That's fine and dandy. That's great if you have the money, but most churches don't have that money. So instead of having that, you need to have some sort of safety team. And even if you do have law enforcement, let me just say it this way. It's not the same. Usually it's not the same person over and over and over again. You might get different officers coming to your church at different times. So they don't know the congregation and they don't know what is happening inside your church. So you truly need a safety team as the ambassadors to make sure that they can work side by side with law enforcement and what is going on and what is happening inside the church. Now, we say this all the time. If you see something, say something. Call local law enforcement in case of a suspicious person or a suspicious incident that's happening. Stay there. Now, remember, remember your positions and hold your positions, because if something is happening outside, we don't know if this is just it's just something that is happening to deflect what is actually going on inside. So make sure that you stay at your positions unless you're called away from it by your safety team lead. And always remember the reason for the season, but always be prepared. Listen, we can be as nice as possible. I mean, I can remember situations where we had people videotaping. This was right after COVID, and we didn't know where they were doing what we called an audit, where they came in to see how many people were at the church, whether they were staying apart from each other, social distancing, whether they were masks, or whether they could go back later on and claim that this was a breeding session. Just to it's just going to be terrible. They're going to be carrying the COVID-19 disease everywhere. So, but talk to these people. Like I said, this person was recording, and as soon as we started talking to him, because he was very suspicious about it. He was only in for 10 minutes and then left the church, and we had a conversation with him, and we could tell that something wasn't right, because one of the first things he said out of his mouth, which tells me that something's not right, is, "Am I going to be arrested for what I just did?" Why would you be arrested? But we were very friendly to the person. We invited the person back. It wasn't our last service that year. And we invited the person back, and we invited his family back. But we kind of told him that recording was kind of a no-no unless you talk to us first. He understood and left. He did not come back. Now, remember our positions. I'm going to point out one of the positions that's going to be really important during the Christmas time, and that is your rover. And the reason why I bring that up is because you're going to have multiple Christmas services. And so people that are out shopping may go out and buy a lot of gifts and things like that, have them in the car and come to a church service and, just go into the church service. Well, just got a report. It was just out on the news today. This is something that we would pass along, is that there has been an uptick of bad people following good people who have just got finished shopping and waiting until they get to their house or to where they're going and then rob them of their gifts. Well, knocking out the car windows and stealing gifts, we've seen that happen. So when I was with the police department, we had details that worked in the parking lots of shopping malls because we were seeing a lot of that. So make sure that you have everybody keep their positions, but you really should have 2 rovers out there, an R1 and an R2. one that may be mobile on a golf cart or some way like that, and the other one on foot, just to watch what is going on in your parking lot. You never, never know what you may come upon. So as we get to the close of the presentation, just wanted to say, the reason why we know the reason why we're doing it. This is the birth of our Savior. And there's going to be a lot of celebrations. There's going to be feeding the hungry, all these different things like this. But always be aware of what is going on. As I said, liberal social groups on social media are talking about not being with the family because they voted for Trump. I mean, really? And this could be an issue if it comes into your church. You know, this to me, there's it's been very quiet lately. We've had some things that have happened across the country, and we could talk about those, but there's been some things that have happened in churches that we do need to have conversations about, but not right now. Right now, we're talking about getting ready for Christmas or getting ready for the holidays. So just remember that we have to be prepared at all times. We have to be the ambassador for the church, but we have to just make sure that everybody is safe and we have a wonderful Christmas season. Now, if you know of a church that's thinking about right now, oh my gosh, let's have a safety team during the Christmas holidays, we have some free resources out there that they can go out and pull down, and it will help them get started. And then once they get, started up and running, you have them call us or you call us because this is the type of training that we do. Situational awareness, threat profiling, verbal de-escalation, what if, mental health in the church, and also personal safety. And the personal safety is one that's caught on because we did this for our youth ministry. But once we got finished with it, we realized that it should be for everybody inside the church. So if we can be of any service, have them contact us. You call us if you want to see some training, if you need some training, because we're here for you. Now, I want you to go out to Rumble and look up our True Christian Talk and follow us because we do a lot of stuff. We just talked about, we talk about politics and we talk about looking at the world through a Christian lens. And it's one of these where we're not trying to argue with anybody. We're not trying to push an agenda down. We're just talking about Christianity in today's world. We have to be ready. We do not know what is coming, but we have to also understand that God is in control and God does know what is happening. And we have to trust him when we get down to the bottom of it. If you carry a weapon inside your church, or even if you don't, I mean, you don't go to church. If you're hearing my voice right now and you carry a weapon at any time, you should have some sort of insurance. Because I can tell you right now that if I was involved in a shooting and got charged, I don't have the money to cover the bond. I just don't. And to get a good attorney, it costs a lot of money, and it's safe to know that a company like USCCA is helping me out and watching my back for me. Now, even if you don't use a weapon in a church, especially when we're in the busy season that we're going to be, if you were to have to put your hands on somebody because you're protecting somebody in the church, you're protecting the church, you're protecting somebody there, and you have to put your hands on them, and they get injured or they want to sue because you escorted them out, and they felt like you were holding them too tight or things like that, you need to have a partner like USCCA. And if you're interested in something like this, please give me a call and I will connect you to our USCCA reps that I trust, that I use and I trust. So if you're thinking about doing something like this, give me a call. Let's talk about it. I just want to tell all of you out there that have been following us, members with us, just I thank you so much. During the Thanksgiving time frame, while working on this, I'm so thankful for the people that I've gotten to know, gotten to meet, and just really thoroughly enjoy the opportunity to serve you. So if there is anything that we can do, go to our webpage, TrinitySecurityAllies.com, or email me at jim@TrinitySecurityAllies.com. That's jim@TrinitySecurityAllies.com. Thank you so much for all that you do out here, all the work that you do, the ambassadors for Christ that you are. You have a Merry Christmas and have a safe and happy New Year. And the Howard family really thanks you for all that you've done for us. Be safe and be blessed.